Well, as we wrap up the month of May, it has been a very stormy and wet month across much of the country. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get an update on some of the longer range forecasts, some of the world issues we're watching as well with weather, all that and more. Joining us now for conversation, Eric Snodgrass with Nutrient Ag Solutions joins us. Eric, good to talk with you again. Hope you had a great weekend. And man, oh man, as we look to close the book on the month of May, we saw more severe weather over the holiday weekend, more devastating tornadoes, more heavy rain. This has been quite a month for severe weather and heavy rainfall across the U.S., hasn't it, Eric?
It has. And I think if we had to find something to blame, I'd look to the North Pacific. There's been this area of high pressure that's set north of Hawaii that just continues to return. It sends the jet stream very quickly through the southern part of Alaska. It enters the Northwest and dives over the mountains. And anytime you get troughs of low pressure that just roll over the Western mountains, the central United States gets lit up with severe weather and it pushes east. And unfortunately, this May has been one for the record books, including this past weekend. We had over 1,200 reports on a single day, and that I mean that was just one of the days. You add up all the other days in addition to that, there's another 1,000 to maybe 1,500 reports that need to be included. And to be honest, it's very difficult to stay on top of all of it. I mean, while you're watching one cluster of storms in one area, you're getting reports of them in other areas. And given how prevalent storm chasing is now as both a career and a hobby, you're constantly being bombarded with seeing just tremendous amounts of damage. And even this morning, we watched storms that rolled out of parts of northern and eastern Texas with wind gusts we're estimating at well over 100 miles an hour that went just close to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. On top of that, it's been extremely wet in Iowa, extremely wet in your backyard in the Mid-South. I mean, I was just thinking about this. Where I live right here in Champaign, we had flooded fields all weekend, standing water in most fields that I could see. We only had 3.5 inches of rain. I mean, there are some places around us that had 6 to 10 inches of rain in the last week. So just think about tripling that amount of precip, and it's just been crazy. And don't forget, we got spots that are dry. I mean, central Kansas, you get back into the western and high plains, Mexico, drought that's going on there. This is not to ignore those places that would gladly take any additional moisture that others have in abundance. But I'll be honest, Jesse, I know you're staying up late with a newborn. My kids are older. They're not keeping me awake. The weather is keeping me awake. Just constantly trying to stay on top of this pattern and when it's going to break has been it's been exhausting. So I'm not nursing a newborn here with a bottle. It's just I need a different kind of bottle to kind of nurse me through the forecast. I don't know, Jesse. It gets exhausting sometimes. Just try to stay on top. Try to make light of it. I know, but there you go.
I can't even imagine. I know it's tough to forecast a lot of this. And someone made the comment to me here over the weekend that the amount of tornadoes we've seen too, and not just like quick spin up tornadoes, but EF2s, 3s, 4s in some case, very strong tornadoes, long track tornadoes. That has been something that has been, it just feels like in abundance here the last few weeks as well, Eric.
It has. And, we're pushing, to be honest, we're not close to what we had in 2011. Like 2011 takes the cake. That was the year. But I mean, compared to everything else, this has been an extraordinary year for storms that have rotated. And I mean, just pick one and think about it. I mean, just the one that's stuck in my head is the one with the Greenfield, Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not seen damage like that and tornado structure like that in a long time. So this has just been it's been rough, and that's not even to talk of the hail or the straight line wind damage or all the flooding. It's kind of a pick your poison, and this has been a rough season.
It has, very much so. You mentioned the drought in Mexico.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that. I know that's a situation that bears watching.
It does, because if this pattern has a direction in which it's going to evolve, I think the Mexico drought's going to play a huge role in it. And this is the reason why. If we are going to assess what's going to happen, so summer, what happens in summer? Jet stream calms down, moves north. That's summer. That's what is summer. The jet stream calms down and moves north. That brings in heat. What we want to know is, does the jet stream slow down even more than normal, and does it get stuck? And so if the drought that's in central Mexico expands and gets more into Texas, where we've already seen excessive heat watches and warnings. It gets into New Mexico, gets into Colorado, gets into Arizona, gets into the Great Basin. And what that's going to do is that's going to push, and this is what every long-range model is saying, it's going to push through the western U.S., let's call it from about the 100th meridian all the way to the Sierra Nevada mountains, and just roll up that section of the country with heat. Now, what we worry about on our part of the world, just speaking specifically to Midwest farmers, is that that gives us flow by the time we get into mid to late June that comes over the ridge, cascades out of the northwest, and gives us thunderstorms. The problem with thunderstorm events like that is you get places that get soaked with rain, followed by nearby counties that are in flash drought scenarios, because it'll be hot when that pattern settles in. Hot and stormy seems to be the way of it this summer, and hot and stormy does not mean hot and stormy everywhere. It doesn't mean everybody gets a drink. So the year that's renting a lot of space in my brain is this is the kind of scenario that happened in 2020. We had a ridge that built over the southwest United States. Ridge riding storms came over the top of it, and the crop, got big storms late, and some of them were damaging. I know you remember the August 2020 derecho, of course, but so thinking about that, are any of the models suggesting it? Yeah, they all are. They're all looking at that same kind of scenario. So I think we have to watch Mexico in June. May was all about the North Pacific. June will be about the Mexico drought and expansion.
How about other issues around the world? We've continued to follow what's happening in Russia, the Black Sea region, for instance, things like that. Any other updates around the globe for us, Eric?
Well, if we start to see a shift in our jet stream pattern by, let's call it June 6th, 7th, and there is 3 different models all projecting that that's going to occur, that's going to shove things all over the planet. And we've been dry in the Russian wheat belt. 2 models still say it's going to stay dry. European just came in this morning and says storms, bring storms into that area. I'm watching Australia for better precipitation. And finally, the flooding that's been going on in Rio Grande do Sul for over a month and a half has backed off, and we're moving headlong into the dry season for most of South America. So transition in one hemisphere, transition in another, and I think it's all going to play a critical role as the markets kind of watch to see where one new crop comes from and how one finishes. So Jesse, this isn't going to slow down for either of us. Let's just hold on tight and see how things go.
I couldn't agree more. Real quick, as we kind of wrap this up here today, let's bring it back home to the U.S. And as we're flipping the calendar to the month of June, anything on some of those longer range models you're keeping an eye on here for next month?
Yeah, there's a drier stretch coming into the central part of the Corn Belt as we go forward into this month of June. I really think we're going to be looking at a better scenario, but we just don't want it to get too dry for too long. It'll be amazing. We'll get 10, 15 days of dryness. Everyone will be happy for about the first 10 days, and then they'll be like, bring it back. We got to have that moisture back. So that'll be what I'll be watching in the month of June. It'll be heat and dryness, mostly anchored in the West, but how it influences parts of the Central United States will be critical.
Well, folks can stay up to date with weather that you produce there with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Just go to agweather.com, ag-wx.com for more information. As always, we appreciate it. Eric Snodgrass with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Thanks for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.